Hi everyone, and let's begin another episode here at Psychological Theatre. And today I would like to continue what we were discussing in the last video. And the last video was about how we have a biasness, in a way, how we are biased in relation to thought, how we call one type of thought as thought and another kind of thought as as myself. So if you have not heard that one, then please, I would request to go back to that video and just listen to it first, because it's more like it's more connected to that one, today's video. So it will help. So today I would like to explore the same concept but from a different way. Okay, so let's call it as that thought is existing in fragments, okay, in pieces, in parts, however you want to say it. So we can call it the fragmentation of thought. What does it actually mean? The word fragmentation itself means to have fragments. Fragments means to have sections or parts, or like, to make it simple as a word. So how is thought creating fragments? Okay, that is what I would like to share with you a little bit today. And as usual, which is applicable to all our videos, you can test it on yourself. You have to test it on yourself, otherwise it's just an idea for you. So test it on yourself and then check the truth of the statement. Check how what we are going to discuss today, you need to check the fact of it. So what I'm trying to say here with the fragmentation of thought is that essentially thought always works in relation to itself, and that's the trick of it. Okay, what do I mean from it? When thought starts to move, it gives an impression that it's moving in relation to the thinker. Okay, let's take an example already, or okay, I will first put it to words and then we go to the example. So essentially thought starts to move in relation to the thinker, okay, the I, the ego, and the ego and the thinker becomes the observer of the thought. So it gives an impression that thought is working for me, for the ego, and then I have to decide something about the thought which is going on. Okay, it could be any kind of thought. For example, I have to decide what to eat. Okay, so my thought comes and presents me with 5 options. Okay, it shows me, you like to eat this, you like to eat this, and then I look at each of the options and then I make a choice that okay, this is what I would like to eat, and then I execute that decision with my body. It's a very simple process. You can observe it quite easily, how you make a choice. So when that happens, the important thing to observe is that thought is offering all those options to the thinker, to the I, to the ego. Okay, and then the ego decides to choose which one it wants to choose. So what we have to see is that thought is never active by itself. Okay, it's always active for the thinker, for the ego. Okay, so the very activity of thought is always with 2 points. Okay, the 2 points can be called as 2 fragments. Okay, one is the point which is observed, okay, and one is the point who is observing. Okay, one is the thought and one is the thinker who is thinking. So all thought has this basic fragmentation in it inherently. It doesn't matter what kind of thought it is. Okay, all thought is always directed towards the thinker, or all thought is in relation to the thinker. The thinker and the thought are existing together, so as to say. So this is the essential fragmentation of thought, that whenever thought has to function, it always functions with this fragmentation. Thought creates the thinker, thought creates what the thinker is thinking about. They are both created by thought. Okay, another way of saying it is according to our last video, where I mentioned that what you think or what you feel inside of you as your voice, that I should do this, I should not do this, this voice is not considered as a thought. It's considered as you, whereas every other thought is considered just as a thought. And we try to focus on the fact that they are both thought actually. The voice that comes in your own voice and says that, yeah, this is thought, I should do this, I should not do that, that's also a thought. And a random thought which comes to your mind is also a thought. So in the same way, what I'm trying to show you is that as thinking happens, it in its very happening, in the very functioning of the thinking, it creates 2 points. One is the thought and one the controller of the thought. Okay, they both are created by the process of thinking. It gives an illusion that the thinker, the controller of the thought, is not created by thought. But when you will observe it, you will see that this controller, this ego, the I, the thinker, is also created by the thought. And the thing which this ego or the I is observing in the mind is also a thought. Okay, so essentially when thought moves in you, it moves by making these 2 points. Okay, it moves as an object about which some decision has to be made, and the subject who observes the object and makes the decision. But the problem happens is we are not aware of the fact that the subject is also made by thought. We only think that the object is made by thought, and the subject is not made by thought. The subject is something more than thought, something more real. Some people will call it the soul, some will call it the Atma, the Atman, the real, the pure one, or whatever term you would use. But with the honest observation, with the honest investigation, you can see that the subject, the ego, the observer, the I, is also created by the thought, because when it comes in your own voice, giving you an illusion that it's not thought, but it is thought, and the object which you are thinking about. Okay, so this is the first basic fragmentation in thought. Thought always works in duality. This is essentially the 2 points of duality: the observer and the thing he is observing, the thinker and the thing he is thinking. These 2 points create a dualistic mechanism, a dualistic approach inside of you. So thought itself gets divided into 2. Okay, it makes 2 parts. That's why I'm calling it fragmentation. It makes 2 fragments. One fragment becomes the controller, and one fragment becomes what is to be decided about. Okay, so this thing can be very easily observed inside of you. It requires a honest observation, so as to say. But I would say it also requires an interest, okay, that you can listen to me and then you can understand it in the terms of language, that you understood my words. Then you can understand it at the level of the concept, that you understood my word, and in your mind you create a concept of it, and you understand the concept, and then you think you have understood it. Okay? And then there is a third level of understanding where it has become a part of you. Okay? It has come into your action, it has come into your life. So the first understanding and the second understanding are relatively easy to grasp, but we have to move to the third understanding, because the third understanding is actual understanding, which affects your life. Otherwise, you listen something, it doesn't affect you, then I don't know, it was just a nice session of listening or something. So we are not saying stuff to entertain ourselves here on the channel. We are saying stuff, we are discussing stuff to make an actual change in the pattern of life. So in that sense, I would highly request everyone that please try to put it into the life first. Please try to first observe it. And to observe it, you first need interest in it. And the interest will come from the fact that all that we're talking about is about you. All of this that we're talking about is happening in you. This process of thought, this illusion of thought by the fragmentation of thought, my language might sound too tricky, too fancy or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can Google the meaning of the words and everything. What really matters is that you understand it first conceptually, okay, and then you catch yourself doing it. You catch yourself red-handed, so as to say, in the English phrase, to catch red-handedly. You catch yourself doing it. Now, thought is moving almost all the time in the day, okay, in your mind. So you have thousands and thousands of opportunities to catch yourself, okay, to test this dualistic approach of thought, to test that your own voice inside of you is also a thought. It's not something more real than some other thought, which is the basic illusion of thought, okay, which we discussed in the last video. So the same way of saying the same thing, that you are biased towards one kind of thought which comes in your own voice and you call it me, I can say the same thing in a different way, that thought divides itself into 2 points. One becomes the subject, one becomes the object. But essentially, they are both thought, which is the juice of the matter. So you have to see that the subject is also a thought and the object is also a thought. The moment you think subject is not a thought, only object is a thought, you live a life where these 2 points always exist. Because you think that these 2 points are real. These 2 points are these 2 points don't have the same source. You think they are 2 separate entities. One is the thought, and the thinker who is having the thought is totally different. He is some super identity, some super soul or something who is having the thoughts, okay? So you have to catch yourself that the thought is thought, of course, but the thinker, the ego, the I is also a thought, which will be a little tricky to catch, but you can catch it, okay? So try to do this. try to catch it. Try to see yourself that thought itself is trying to move, and the only way it can move is in relation. Okay? I'm giving you a big hint for some other important topic that we will have later on. That movement is happening always in relation. Outside of you, in the physical world, and in the same way inside of you. So, first of all, it shows that thought is also a materialistic process, just like the things outside of you which are material, and they all are moving in relation, or they are all moving relatively. They all are moving in cause and effect. Okay? Now, how does thought create this relativistic movement? To create a relativistic movement, you need 2 points. Something in relation to something else. That's why it's called relativistic or relative motion, relative movement, which is also 11th standard physics. So, thought breaks itself into 2 points, the subject and the object, and this breaking creates or gives the possibility for thought to move, because now there is a relativistic point. These relativistic this relative approach of thought gives it the possibility to move. If there was not these 2 points, thought cannot move. The action of movement requires this, the relative action, the cause, so as to say. So when thought creates the subject becomes the cause, and the object becomes the effect. So then the thinker starts to control the object or this thing, and then this allows thought to move. Then thought starts to move to help the subject, to make life easy for the subject, to give more pleasure to the subject, to avoid all the pain from the subject. And then thought gets the chance to move. Otherwise thought cannot move. If this fragmentation doesn't take place, then thought cannot move. So I think I have opened it a lot, and the language might sound a little tricky, but you can go back and listen it again, maybe even at a slower speed if that helps. But this is essentially how it's taking place. So you have to catch yourself doing it. The more you catch yourself doing it, the more you will understand the depth of the statement. So I would hope that you are trying it, you are taking it a little bit seriously, because it's about yourself. It's not some kind of a concept we are discussing. We are not discussing some fancy ideas. We are discussing basic level facts of existence. This is how your mind is functioning. That's what we are discussing. So there is no mystery there. There is no fancy hidden things there. There is just a basic functioning of the mind. And I'm suggesting something which I'm suggesting on the basis of the experimentation that I have done. And I have some results. And in a way, I'm sharing those results with you. Now it's your chance, it's your turn to verify them. And the only way to verify them is to do the experiment again, just like how it happens in science. It's the same principle. So please try it. Please observe yourself when this thing is happening, and it's happening all the time in you during the day. So you don't have to wait or something. You can see it very easily. And then you would see. Okay? So thank you very much for everyone who are listening. And today's topic is a little more tricky. So if you have any questions, please write to me in the comments, and I would love to reply to that. And whoever is listening, thank you very much again. And let's meet again in the next video. Thank you.